Welcome back, you guys. This is Mark with NCEngravers, and tonight we're going to be working on the Sig P365 model slide. Now, if you've been following us for the last couple of years, you've seen different styles of cut work performed on the Sig P365 slide, as well as the XL and now the newer X model. We seem to see a lot of the same requests surface up through emails, during conversations at the counter when customers drop off, and we've never really approached it until now. Now, before we get into the cut work, I want to kind of tell you my thought process, and then I kind of want to move into that. The service that we continuously see requested is, do you guys offer side windows, right? We keep seeing that as a request. One of the reasons we've always steered clear of this service was there's a lot of aftermarket slides out on the market that have side windows. Some of the designs that we already have go from the top over the edge and into this chamfered area, which wouldn't leave a lot of room for side windows. We have front serrations, we've got text. On the XL, we've got an area here. On the X, we've got another logo here. So these are all things that kind of prevented us from really wanting to do it. Not that it couldn't be done, I'm just not sure I had seen the value in doing the work. We're a little bit slower this time of year. When we get into that closer to June, mid-July kind of time, what ends up happening is we slow down a little bit over the summer. People go on vacations, they don't process as many guns as they normally do, and this is a great opportunity for us to do something that we haven't done before. We can take it a little bit slower because we don't have to be at such a quick and fast pace with everything else going on. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing here today is side windows, but not only that. One of the other things that we do see a lot of as far as requests go, is a front of optic dovetail. So on the X model and the XL, the optic is here. There's a rear iron sight. Of course, when you take the plate off, the rear iron sight just falls off, and now you are left with basically no rear iron sight unless you use an optic that has one built into the rear, like the Romeo Zero, like the 407 507K. Excuse me. So we had decided, we thought it was a good idea to cut a new dovetail in front of our optic cut. So today we're going to be doing an optic cut to the rear of the slide, very similar to the XL, the X, which would be to remove this all together, right? And then we're going to cut a new dovetail here. Now that new dovetail today is going to be cut for the Sig model iron sight. Now, I know this doesn't fit well with all of you because if you have an X or an XL, you don't actually have that sight. It's a different sight from the 365 versus the XL and the X. So we're also going to be offering the Glock dovetail cut here as well, and that's exactly what I would recommend to you if you don't have an iron sight, because there's a lot more options that are out on the market. You can get a night sight, a black sight, you can just fiber optic sight. There's just so many more options. Now, I don't want to limit the people that have a 365 needing to buy a new sight if you already have a rear sight that is coming off the weapon, right? So that's one of the ideas is that I do want to be able to cut for that. We do want to also be able to cut for a Glock. It's during checkout, it's going to ask you for both of those options and which one do you want. I do know the cuts are very similar to each other, but not necessarily the same to each other. We will get into that here a little bit at the end, and we're going to explain that a little bit more. We'll retouch base back on that once everything has been put back together. So, of course, we're going to be doing side windows. I want to do the standard Cobra nose. And one of the interesting things about this design, how I've created it, is it will work with our Raptor cut and our Ray cut and our Hive cut. So if you already have a slide that's already been done and you want to add to it, this is an opportunity to not have to go out and buy a whole new slide or have to source something else or start a whole new project. You can literally send in your slide that's got an optic cut and Raptor cut and add the side windows, add the Cobra nose, add the dovetail. Whatever pieces to the puzzle are missing, we can add those back to an existing project that we've done over the last 2 or 3 years. So it's kind of backwards planning for people that already have something done, and it's future planning for somebody that maybe wants to only have a portion of the work done now and something done in the future. One of the other things I want to just kind of go into is the coloring. So once the slide's been cut, it's going to need to be colored. It is metal on metal contact when it's in the vise when we're doing the cut work, and you guys will be able to see that optic dovetail side windows and stuff. It is held in a vise, steel on steel. So there's a high chance that somewhere along the way this is going to get marked or nicked. Not only that, but we are removing material that leaves burrs in the areas, and that stuff needs to be sandblasted down in order to clean it fully. So you can expect that your part needs to be sandblasted, even if you said, man, I've got an X model and I just want to have a dovetail cut here. I don't care about the rest of it. It will need to get sandblasted and recoated of some sort because we're going to destroy the factory coating in the process. So That's just kind of a forewarning for those of you that are looking for a small piece to that puzzle. You've already had work done. It's already, Cerakote and blue titanium or something, and you want to have some more work done. It's going to need to be recoated. It is a required service on the webpage because of that reason. Guys, at this time, I think it's time to jump over to the CNC machine. Let's go ahead and take you guys through the work. I'm going to bring it back. I don't know what color we're going to do on it yet. I haven't decided. We have a couple of new colors here that we haven't done, which we may show. We may also go back to something like a Patriot Brown, which is closer to the darker FDE that you guys would see on one of these limited guns. So I don't know. There's a couple different options that we have on the table. I'm going to see. Maybe we'll go with a wipe or a worn kind of look. Nonetheless, I think it's going to be impressive. Let's kind of go through it, and we'll see what it comes out looking like in the end. Alright guys, now that we are back together, let's kind of briefly discuss the work that's at hand here. Then I want to go into some of the finer details of the build, answering hopefully most of those questions that you have if you're thinking about having work done. We have the side windows, the optic cut, the dovetail cut, the Raptor cut, the Cobra nose. So as you're building out your service package from the web page, those are the individual named pieces to the puzzle. Now, you are able to build this configuration however you want. I only want Cobra nose and side windows and coloring. I only want optic, dovetail, and coloring. We have different listings if it's specific to just an optic type of work. Now, if you're going into a hive with side windows with Cobra nose or array with side windows with Cobra nose, those are individual listings, but the costs are all pretty much the same between them. You just need to select the correct one. There is a primary cut service on each one of those listings, and that's usually this one. Okay, so either it's a top window, a ray cut, a Raptor cut. That is usually how we have it listed out, because all the other pieces, Cobra nose, side window, dovetail, optic, are all pieces that can be added to any of those packages. Now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this work a little bit more. I want to go into, does it fit your slide? Let's jump into some of that. So, first and foremost, this is what it looks like here in the end. This is one of our slides, so we don't have all the components to it. This is something we just ordered online. Went ahead and did the cut work. Overall, I really like the way that it came out. Now, if you're curious what this color is, this is just something I kind of threw together. This is an OD green coyote tan. The coyote tan is a little bit more of kind of a wear. There is a little bit of Air Cure Patriot Brown in here also on the back end. So it's hard to tell, but this is a little bit darker than these pockets here. I just kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit, see what we get. Now, once again, you can do a solid color. You don't have to do anything with mixing colors or matching things. I just wanted to go ahead and put something together for you guys that was a little bit different, something that we haven't seen before. Really nice setup the way that this works. Factory. Of course, we've cut this deep enough to work with it. Let's see if we can kind of, sort of, we can get this guy to focus here. Maybe we can. I've got some pictures in here that I will have to include. But it does align. The optic does align with the iron sights. The iron sights do align with each other. Now, let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's go into this this iron sight setup and the configuration that's offered. I'm going to go ahead and put this down on a roll of tape that we have here. So one of the things I want to talk about as far as the dovetail goes, You can either have that cut as a Glock, or you can have that cut as a Sig. Now, keep in mind that when you do a Sig, it's really kind of tough because the way the Sig is designed is the iron sight actually comes to the front of the slide and the back stays inside of the dovetail. So, in other words, the rear of the iron sight is pretty well straight up and down and the front leans forward. This is why when you look at your factory slide, as long as you don't have an X or XL, this rear sight is cut here and there's a little flat space. You can see that we duplicated it. It's usually cut right in the back end there. Now that just gives it room for that flat zone to lay across the slide, as these are a dome-shaped slide. You may be able to tell that if you don't already have one in hand, that these are rounded from the front of the slide all the way to the rear, and they're also tapered, narrow, and thicker. So we have some challenges, obviously, when we do the work. My recommendation to you is, if you happen to already have one of these iron sights, you could probably cut the slide and have it work. I don't recommend that. And I say that because there's a lot of different Glock sights out there that will fit a little bit better. They are not the same dovetail. Okay, so if you've got this idea of like, well, I've got this iron, so let me just put it in there and I'll switch it out to a Glock later, you are sadly mistaken, because that dovetail is going to be too big and that Glock sight is going to slip right through and fall out the other side. So make a wise choice starting at the beginning, as you may not have a secondary choice later on down the road. If it was up to me, I would go with the Glock sight. You are going to find out that on the webpage, we're going to make some recommendations for an all-black sight. We're going to make some recommendations for a night sight. Of course, you can use, something else that's a Glock sight. These are just the recommendations that we see fit that aligns the best with the front. Once again, make the choice that fits best for your needs. But the point of this video was, can it be cut for the Sig sight? Will the Sig sight work? And how does it work? And in the end, we achieved that. It is an option on the webpage that you can stick with a Sig sight if that's what you're wanting. Stay away from P320 sights. We see those on some of the guns that come through. We see people have swapped the fronts and the rears out to a 320 sight. The problem that we run into is they're totally different. So they do fit the dovetail. They're really tight usually in a P365 dovetail. The 320 sight is really tight, but it's also significantly taller than this, and that is going to cause problems, because remember, this sight was here and now it's been moved here and it's taller. Okay, so we're going to start throwing these two off, because once again, slide itself is more narrow here than it is back here, and that means a lot when we're talking about how it's been recessed from the factory, because it is cut lower, and how it's been milled into the slide further back than the front sight, and now we've relocated it. So these can all throw things off. It is required that you send in the rear iron sight with the slide at the time of work. We say that because somebody says, hey, I want to do a regular good old 365 sight. We cut it for, all of a sudden you've switched it to a Dawson Precision or to a Night Vision or to somebody else, and it doesn't work, it doesn't align, it doesn't go. So we don't want to go through that. What we want to do is went ahead and mount that for you. Also, this gives us the opportunity to do a dovetail cut and adjust the height of the rear optic. So we can cut the rear optic to different depths in the slide. So we can cut this first, put this guy in here, take some measurements, and then say, okay, well, you need to be technically this height for your optic in order to align with the iron sights correctly. Otherwise, we're going to be cutting it to full depth, which is what we've done here, and in the end, it's just not going to work. Your iron sights are going to be too tall, or they're not going to align, whatever the case may be. Let's talk a little bit about those sights. Once again, if you're going with this is just a sight we pulled off. This is a P365 used sight. I think a customer left this with us as a demonstration. We have that happen a lot when somebody has to swap out their sights. Sometimes they graciously just give us their old sights and we use them as examples. So this leans forward, as you guys can kind of tell. So there's the dovetail, and then this is the optic, and then this leans forward, just as we had already seen. Once again, this is an option. You do have to choose during checkout which type of iron sight slot we're cutting. So let's jump into the Glock stuff. So if you're going to do a Glock dovetail, my recommendation would be to go with something like a 43 or a 43X iron sight. Now, this is just a factory one, okay? I don't recommend this, but I'm showing it for demonstration purposes. So if we can get this guy in here, you can see this is a factory width sight, and it's about as wide as the slide itself. Of course, I've just set it on there so it doesn't fall over. The idea is you don't really want to go with a 19, a 17, a full size, because it's going to hang over the sides, and honestly, I wouldn't even recommend putting it in just because it's going to snag and it's going to hit. So this is your typical 43X, 43 sight. Something that we don't want to do is go with a narrow suppressor sight. We get that idea a lot that people are like, oh, I'm going to have to go with a suppressor sight because we're running an optic. Do not do that. If you do that, it's going to be crazy high. It's probably not even going to fit on here. Once again, damaged sight that one of our customers had to replace for them. This is super, super high in comparison to what we need to use. Don't use that. The other issue you run into is there's a lot of aftermarket sights out there, like this is a True Glow, and the idea is that people do want to have a night sight, a fiber optic sight, something along those lines. When you put this guy in here, okay, you're going to see that this is going to be, and I can't really do it, but this is going to be hanging into the socket for the optic. Okay, so when you start looking for sights for 43s, this is kind of what you're looking for because it's so narrow, right? It's going to be backwards. I'm going to set it up on here. You can kind of see how it would fit the slide really nice. The downside is because it hangs over the back, I'm working behind the camera, because it hangs over the back, it's going to be way up into where the optic is, and that's going to run into a problem. So if you're looking for one, don't get a sight that hangs to the rear, optic on this side, front of slide on this side. Don't get an iron sight that hangs over the rear. If it does, it cannot hang over very far. You do see that we have a little bit of room here, okay? Not a lot. We don't want to push this guy too far forward into where the barrel area is. We also are covering over the roll pin hole. This is not really that big of a deal. This can always be cut down and shortened. It can always be installed from the bottom side. They go in and out either way. So that's kind of the overview of that. Let's talk about the X. Let's talk about the XL. What's offered? What's going to be offered? Guys, my recommendation is if you're going to have something done with your X model or you have an XL and you want to have some cut work done, first and foremost, we haven't done this exact work on an X. It is offered. The slides are the same. My recommendation would definitely be to add a dovetail. If you're one of those guys that's like, I like running an optic, but I lose my iron sight when I run an optic. If you're getting any work done, you should be adding this to it. Okay? So, it's a $50 charge to do that. Once again, provide the iron sight. We'll put it in for you. It's a done deal. But this is your only chance of getting it back on the slide without buying an aftermarket slide and going down some other path. Same thing with the XL. If you have an XL, you're thinking about having an iron sight put back on the gun only, then do that. Go into the optic service. We're not going to charge you for an optic cut because it's already optic ready, but we do give you the option of a dovetail and we do give you the option of a Cerakote. So you're going to end up paying for a coating fee. You're going to end up paying for a dovetail fee. We're going to put that all together for you. Obviously, we would recommend that you provide the optic at the time of work because we can align everything for you. If you want to change out the front sight, now's the time to do it. Change it out. But with that being said, we rarely offer just a standalone single service of a dovetail cut, right? And there are other guns that are out there on the market, Canic being another example. Whenever you put an optic on, you lose a rear iron sight. Okay, so this isn't just a Sig problem. There are some other vendors. There's a handful of other ones that are out there that you do lose a rear sight when you add an optic. So with that being said, this is an opportunity to get back to where you want to be. We have never done side windows on a XL, right? We hope to. It is a service that we plan on doing. We just haven't had anybody come forward and ask for it. We haven't ordered a slide and done it. So maybe we'll make another video. Maybe we'll build something different and we'll do it. We'll show it to you guys a little bit more. Hopefully this has been somewhat educational for you guys that are like, hey, totally, I want to get that done. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know what to expect. Hopefully we answered those questions. Also, hopefully it's just been informational on, as far as us as a company, the thoroughness, the completeness, the overview of what you can expect when you order a service through us. Okay, so you process an order from online, your email, the receipt has a shipping address, box your stuff up real nice so it doesn't rattle around in the box, tape all the flaps and ship it in. A couple days later, literally a couple days later, we send it back out, you're good to go, you're done. That's literally how it works. I want to talk to you guys about aftermarket slides versus factory slides here just a moment. It's something on my mind. I know there's a lot of aftermarket slides that are out there on the market. One of the reasons that we briefly talked about that at the beginning of the video about doing side windows is because you can buy one with side windows, right? My recommendation is always going to be to choose and to use a factory slide and barrel over an aftermarket one. And I say that because, one, it came with your gun when you bought your gun. Two, it's one of the highest quality metals used. You do not see cracked and blown up factory slides. Doesn't exist. Not that I've ever seen. Not unless it was some crazy mishap of a squib or something happened and it just, a very erratic environment and something blew up, right? Not out of the norm, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Use the slide that's given to you, okay? It's high quality parts. You can get the same service, the cut work, the optic, the dovetail, You can maybe get some services that you can't get on aftermarket slides done on your factory slide, and you already own it. So there's no sense of pulling this guy off, pulling the parts off it, putting your aftermarket slide. Hopefully they work, because there's 2 different extractors that are out there. Hopefully your parts work in an aftermarket slide. This goes into a junk drawer or goes into your safe in the corner, and you're like, I'll get that back out someday. No, you won't. Okay, the idea is that you already bought an aftermarket slide. Someday you may sell your gun, and this guy's just laying around and it has no value. You're better off doing a service on this and not buying an aftermarket slide if you have the intent of maybe you'll sell later on down the road, because you'll never get your money back out of the aftermarket slide because it's either discontinued or they've been mass produced or they've come out with a Gen 2. There's so many different reasons why buying that aftermarket slide, you won't win. If you keep your guns forever, hey, I can see the value in an aftermarket slide. But if you're one of those guys that runs things, likes things, I want to recolor things, I want to change things, I want to put barrels in, I would not be the guy doing the aftermarket slide business. It's just not me. With that being said, we do offer services on aftermarket slides. We do offer optic cuts on some of them. We do have done windows on them. We do coloring, of course, on aftermarket slides. So we do still offer services on those guys. The idea is that you already own the slide, right? So don't get in the line to get a slide that's going to be here in 4 months when you can get this back in like 4 days. So with that being said, it's kind of one of those deals. If you have any other questions, feel free to let us know. Hopefully, once again, you've enjoyed the video. Hit the bell. If you are not subscribed, this is going to give you notifications. You'll get an email when stuff comes out. Please leave a comment down below. If you like the color, I hate the color, I like the cut work, I would change the cut work. Let's hear it. Let's talk a little bit more about what your thought set is there. We have adjusted patterns in the past because people have kept saying the same thing over. Once again, like this video, we haven't offered side windows before until now because we hadn't had time to get to it, but we had continuously been hearing side windows, side windows, side windows, and now here we are. So it's kind of one of those things. If you do speak loud enough, there's enough of you that congregate into the same thing, more than likely eventually it'll come to the surface, and that service will be offered. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Once again, we have some other things in the works.